What do Buddhists believe? For Buddhists, this is a very loaded question, this word belief. For every million Buddhists who are believers and believe in the enlightenment of Buddha Shakyamuni and believe in the truth of impermanence and believe in karma, cause and effect, you'll find another million Buddhists who say that Buddhism is not about beliefs. Don't talk to me about beliefs. But I think I can say one thing that all Buddhists in common believe, and that is they believe, or we believe, in reality. We believe that we are part of reality. We're having this experience of being in this room here together right now, and that to us is a very real experience. Buddhists also believe that reality isn't what it seems at face value. That if you check under the hood, if you investigate a little bit, the way things seem to be to our senses, to our thoughts, to our emotions, those things don't actually truly exist independently in the way that they appear, because in fact, everything is this interdependent dance or interplay of different types of forces, fields, energies, thoughts, consciousness, and so on. Buddha taught this thousands of years ago, and now, thankfully, cognitive science, quantum physics, linguistic science, philosophical hermeneutics, and so on, all agree that that is true. That what we are experiencing now is a real experience, but it is an experience of something like a user interface on a computer screen. Because what's happening behind the screen is very, very busy and always changing. Nothing is actually holding still as anything by itself for even one instant. Nothing. So we are just flowing along and streaming along, and everything is interplaying with and affecting everything else. Why am I talking about that? Because birth and death in Buddhist understanding work exactly the same way. If the material world out there is not real and solid the way it seems to our eyes and to our thoughts, if materiality itself, if solidity, independence is an illusion, a workable illusion that helps us kind of manage things, then not having any true solid existence itself, the material world cannot have created our awareness. Go home and think about that. If the world is not a solid, real, separate thing from our minds, then our minds themselves can't be just the temporary product of that. So our minds, our experience, our consciousness flows in a stream like everything else, constantly shifting from moment to moment. The person we are when we're a little child is not the same person we are as a fully grown adult. Other than the name and maybe some freckles or other identifying features, nothing is the same. Everything has changed, and yet there's some pattern that holds, that continues, that we can identify as that person. And even now, we can't say, oh, Rodney is that person whose body was like that, because now through his incredibly profound act of generosity and compassion, Rodney's body is part of 75 other people's bodies, helping them survive and live. So is it their body now, or is it his body? This is where things start to fall apart when you look at them as a Buddhist. You know, he gave this gift. So that's not the truest Rodney. The truest Rodney is all of the effects and experiences, everything he shared with us, all those moments, and the effects we carry forward by holding him, and the sense of who he was and what he contributed in our hearts going forward. The Rodney that we carry with us in this room today is the realest Rodney there is. But then what happens to the stream that we called Rodney? Where is that? So think about it this way. You know how on a hot summer's day when you're standing out in the hot sun and there's an inviting swimming pool in front of you, but the water's really cold? There's that moment of hesitation or almost fear of like, I know as soon as I jump in that water, I'm going to feel completely different than I do right now. It's like a change of state. And you know that something feels very different, right? When you're floating, suspended in this medium of cool water versus when you were standing outside looking at it. So I call that the dive, the shallow dive. Every day we take a shallow dive when we go to sleep. We trust that even though our thoughts aren't continuing as they do in the daytime, that a random jumble of different thoughts and impressions occur in the dream state, and then in deep sleep we have no recollection usually of anything happening at all. We trust that that's just a stage of our wave flowing forward, and the next day we'll return to this sense, this daytime sense of who we are, right? We all trust that. We're fine with that. We go away, we come back, we go away, we come back, because we know we're not just these thoughts and impressions that occur to us during the day. We're more than that. So that's the shallow dive again. Death is the deep dive, where so many of the patterns and impressions that we carried with us for a long time in our lives kind of transition, change state, and then something else. But from where we are now, sitting here, our thoughts, our ordinary kinds of thoughts, perceptions, are inadequate tools to really, truly, deeply understand what kind of transition that is. We're not equipped in that way. But luckily, because we are part of reality, we have mind, we have consciousness, if it's important enough to us, we can investigate more deeply using the only tool at our disposal, the only one we need, which is our self-knowing awareness, our consciousness, to investigate who are we really and deeply when we're not just thinking and not just reacting and not even awake. What is our deepest nature? So death is the deep dive where the deep nature, the deep undercurrent of the pattern of our being persists to emerge somewhere else and take a different form, a different configuration. So last point, what determines that next shape, that next pattern, that next configuration? And I think I even saw it printed somewhere in one of these flyers or the program. It's all the energy of the good actions and thoughts and intentions you had in your life, the positive impact you had through your presence in the world. That's the energy or the fuel. And the steering wheel, what directs it, is your intentions, your purpose. So when you take something like a bodhisattva vow, you are setting a goal or a purpose, setting a direction for how and where you want the current of your being to take you, to grow and to widen and to deepen and to benefit and affect more and more and more people, more beings, more environments. So there's one quote from the Buddha that says this very precisely. It's in a sutra called Demonstrating the Qualities of the Realm of Manjushri. The Buddha said, all phenomena are in accord with conditions. They are poised on the tip of volition. So think of your will or your volition, your purpose as an arrow with a tip and pointing that in a particular direction. So to whatever one may aspire, one will obtain a result consistent with that. So Rodney's purpose, his values, his consistency, fueled by the energy of all of his merit and his virtue and his wonderful connections with all of you, will take him in a beautiful direction. And that I have absolute confidence and faith. So if you want to use the word faith in this context, I would say that is something in which I have deep faith. So that is why for this so-called Buddhist ceremony this afternoon, what we're simply going to do is recite some of these aspiration prayers that help direct ourselves in this kind of positive, virtuous direction, which are very much the kinds of prayers that Rodney himself made. And we'll share this with you so you can have some experience of what this kind of meditation practice. It's not just sitting there kind of empty-headed, right? It's very focused and purposeful and full-hearted. So this is called aspiration prayers.